Hello, Internet. I am Corione, your witch in residence here on YouTube. And today I'm going to do something a little different. Now, normally I cover movies, but today we're going to cover a TV series. And the reason being is because it was requested by a channel member. So I want to thank members like you for effectively creating this video. If you are not a channel member as of yet, I would very much recommend joining the elite, the amazing, the channel members. Not only do all of them get access to back episodes of transmissions from the Rogue Council, our unique conspiracy and aliens and what have you show, you also get access to me. You can let me know what videos, what things you'd like me to cover. Potentially, you can even request some of the uniqueness that is available only through what I do here. There's a lot of options in the channel membership. It's one of the cheapest I can possibly make it, but I would really appreciate it. It means a lot to me that my channel members are as active as they are, and I'm hoping you will consider joining as well. Now, with that obligatory ritual out of the way, I'd like to talk to you guys about the series so far for X-Men 97. All right, now, little known fact, when I was much younger, in the late 80s, early 90s, I actually collected X-Men up until probably about 99, 2000s. Okay? And I loved that run. I loved the characters. I loved the blue team and the gold team. I loved the way that they operated at that time. And seeing some of the most important stories to come out of the X-Men comic book come to life in this animated series has been phenomenal. They've been really incredible so far. Now, I'm going to go through the things I like, the things I don't, and more importantly, the thing that you, my channel viewers, follow me specifically for, what we can learn from it. So the things I really like. I actually like that they've included Morph now. I like that they've done everything they can to match up the voices from the original voice actors. I'm really enjoying the retro feel of the series, the harkening back to the 90s era X-Men. I love what they did with the opening, that they've made sure that the opening reflects what's happening in the series as it goes along. I think that's been fantastic so far. And I really encourage you to watch carefully the opening of each episode, as well as the original opening, to see the differences and things that have changed along the way. It's really kind of incredible. I've also liked the writing. It's incredibly tight. And given that they're tackling, events in the X-Men comic book that took like almost a year to tell, compressing it down to 30 minutes is a challenge, but they've been meeting it. Okay. I also like that this really doesn't feel like it's been written for modern audiences. It really feels like it's been written for the fans. I have a very high detection rate for, we'll call it wokeness. My meter's very, very high. This series hasn't set it off. Okay? And that should say something very important there. Now, I do have to talk also a little bit about the cons of this. Okay? I do have some problems with the fact that they didn't get the original opening music. They had to kind of remix it. I miss the original opening. It was really good. Okay? Rogue's dialogue has been kind of terrible. Gambit and Rogue's romance was a huge plot point in the earlier seasons, and it hasn't been living up to snuff. Wolverine's voice doesn't sound right. I know they tried to match it as close as they could with another voice actor, but they're not getting it just so. Okay? I also think as a villain, Magneto needed to sound like a Shakespearean bad guy so that he was appropriately chewing on the scenery. I feel like, though, as a member of the team now, he needs to be a better, more realized character and needs to drop the goofiness of the way he's been talking to people. I think he needs to be a little more approachable. That's my opinion, right? I also question some of the stories they're covering. I know they cover the episodes that they're covering because they're the important plot points in the story. I don't know if I agree with where they started to cover some of those plot points, or even if they needed to be covered. For now, I will say there are some other pieces that, are just kind of interesting, right? Like, they're covering the trial of Magneto. The trial of Magneto is probably one of the most important philosophical discussions that happen in the X-Men story arc. When you try somebody like Magneto, when you put them on trial for crimes against humanity, and his response is what it is, I think it needs a little more nuance to cover. And I don't know if a 30-minute soundbite is enough time for something of this importance. I really like how they covered Madeline Pryor. I really enjoyed the hell out of that episode. And you can see where they spent the money on the animation in that episode, because her, the Jean Grey clone turning to the dark side, quite literally, was phenomenally done. And the animation was absolutely superb. And the uniqueness and the flow of it was incredible. Okay? The writing was incredibly tight. It felt like I was watching a Reader's Digest version of these story arcs, which, in a lot of ways, I think is what they're going for, and that's okay. Now, where I had, like, what I'm generally feeling about this and what I think, I want to cover the two major story arcs that have been covered so far. I'm going to leave out the rest. I'm going to cover these two, because I think the trial of Magneto, and I believe they called it Inferno in the original comic books, but the Madeline Pryor Goblin Queen arc is what I'm going to call it for this, I think are really important to talk about what we can learn. Okay? The trial of Magneto is not an easy question, because primarily it asks, is it okay to use violence to protect yourself from a system that is designed intentionally to destroy you? This is not an easy question, okay? Let's imagine for a second that we're using the appropriate analogs, because let's be honest, the X-Men has always been an analog for things like discrimination, okay? I think an appropriate level of self-defense is acceptable. When you move into the application of terror on other humans is when you lose me, okay? Because even if you are a mutant, even if you are granted power, you have a responsibility to use that power ethically, okay? To whom much is given, much is also asked. And the biggest ask from that whole equation is that you use that power to build and create a future, not to tear down one. Okay? I want to ruminate on that a little bit here, because that's an important piece to remember. Okay? If you woke up tomorrow with the ability to, I don't know, teleport like Nightcrawler, you have a responsibility not to use that to go rob banks. You have a responsibility to use that, for example, to help in crisis situations for other human beings, because you are part of the greater human community. Okay? You are responsible to your brothers and your sisters, regardless of what they look like, regardless of what they feel like. If you have a skill, you have a responsibility to use it to better everyone. Okay? And through bettering everyone, you will better yourself and you will better your cause. because people will see that help and will be genuinely grateful. I actually had an interesting discussion very much like this. It's part of the reason why I wanted to do this with my daughter recently. We were at a fast food restaurant and a group of Mennonites happened to walk in. She turned to me and said, "Who are these people?" And I explained their general beliefs and why they're a little different than us. And she said, "Oh, do they not like witches?" And I said, "I'm not sure." But I was very polite with them and I was very kind. And she said, "Why are you bothering to be polite and kind to these people if they hate us?" And I responded, "It doesn't matter whether they hate us or not. It's my responsibility to be a representative of the world I want for it to be. Because if they hate me or if they like us, like if they like witches, and I act like a nice person, then I confirm that for them. If they hate witches and I act kindly to them, I make them reevaluate what they're saying. I make them realize, hey, maybe, just maybe, everything we've been told about witches isn't right. And maybe we should try being kind and get to know these people and see what they're about and learn and grow together as friends. But if I'm terrible to them, no matter what happens, they're going to come off with a negative experience." This is a way to live your life, okay? This is a way I would like to think that Charles Xavier would want someone to live their life. By being a positive example, a good role model, by being the change you want to see. By smiling for the Mennonites, by holding the door open for them, by wishing them a good day. What I am doing there is not just for myself and not just for them, but for the world to see. And that's what the X-Men do, right? That's what Magneto is trying to do is he is trying to show people that there is a better way. That by helping everyone, by protecting your own and helping those that you can when you can, you are showing people that you are not to be that there's nothing to be afraid of, okay? People are afraid of that which we don't know. But if I give somebody the opportunity to know me by being kind, then I don't cause fear. Fear doesn't lead to anger or hatred then. It instead, that knowledge lights the way for people forward to a better existence. And that's truly what I think the trial of Magneto was about, is him saying, look, I was acting the way I was because I was being actively hunted. And I've been actively hunted before. The most important line Magneto says in the entire trial is, "For years I was hunted and kept in a camp and brutalized for being different. And then when my powers came in, those same people that were brutalized with me hated and feared me and tried to put me in a camp again." We need to avoid this. We need to make sure that we are keeping to not just never again for an ethnic faction among us, but a never again for all of humanity. Okay? We can't go about causing harm out of fear. Okay? Especially for something like a trick of genetics. And that's why I think the trial of Magneto is super important to hear. Because I think Magneto defends himself quite well in this case. Because if you're being attacked, if you're being hunted, and you turn around and smack the hunters, that's self-defense. And that's his argument. Now, do I agree with all of his tactics? Do I agree with, getting rid of regular humans on the basis of, that they are the inferior now and we are the superior and we need to do this in order to survive long term? No, I believe in cooperation. I believe in working collectively towards a better future. But I believe in it from a mutual benefit and a enlightened self-interest kind of point of view. Okay. The other one I really want to talk about is Inferno. And boy, this one sometimes is hard to watch. If you've ever lost a child, if you've ever been afraid someone was going to take your child away, you can completely understand someone embracing the darkest, angriest, deepest, most painful emotions and spewing them at somebody in a wave of pure hellfire, because that's your kid. That's your son, that's your daughter, that's your life in a small compressed form. And I don't blame anyone who fights like hell for that. In this situation, Madeline is terrified that somebody who happens through a trick of malevolent group forces is going to take her life and her baby's life away from her. We've all seen the effects of mama bear syndrome, okay? Where, you screw with mama's cubs and she will go all out and do any nasty, mean, terrible thing she can to prevent that from happening. That, in a lot of ways, is what we were seeing here. Now, granted, there were, how shall I put it, sinister external factors to that. But I think it's important to remember what was actually happening too here. Right? The reason why Sinister could take control was because of the anxiety of losing a kid. And that's a hard thing to deal with. And I don't think anyone wanted that to happen. Okay? I don't think anyone was talking about taking her child away. I think it was more about making sure that everyone was who they said they were and protecting those that they figured could be in danger. This is a scenario where everyone unfortunately is right and justified in their actions, but it still leads to fear and chaos and pain. And ultimately, what snaps her out of this? The unique memory that is just her own. Her giving birth to a beautiful baby boy, Nathan. And that love, and being reminded that she doesn't have to protect them from her. She has to protect them from other forces. That is what changed the way. That is what helped her get through that. Now, it's very different in the comics. I do want to point that out. But this was a very good story in that regard. This reminds us that for conflict to exist, you don't necessarily have to have a good guy and a bad guy. You can have a bunch of good guys in terrible situations where they have to make very hard choices. Normally, I assign homework at the end of these or something to talk about. And I do want this talking point to go forward. What is a justifiable use of force in a given situation? Now, I suggest you list the situation and when you feel it is justified. For me personally, if my life or the life of someone else is in danger, then I will absolutely hoist the Jolly Roger and do what I need to do to save somebody. Okay? And so long as I'm not hurting others by saving a single life, I feel it's justified, even if I have to be a jerk to do it. Okay? So long as I don't become the guy that's actually actively hurting others, I think I'm covered there. When a situation comes down to it's them or me, I am always going to pick them. Because I can't help others if I'm dead. I can't help others if I'm permanently maimed. And that's where my line is. Where's yours? Let me know in the comments. Okay, guys, that's going to be the video for today. Thank you so much. merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.